Sometimes you're in a real pinch. You might have an assignment due at midnight that you haven't started yet, or your boss might want that report by the end of business today to present to those investors. Or maybe it's time to get that first draft of your book into your publisher so you can stop living off that Diet Coke and ramen diet. Whatever the situation is, you need to get cracking and deliver high quality, well-constructed, highly thought out work that can only be achieved by focusing deeply for hours on end. Basically, you need to deliver a superhuman effort that your soul is screaming out not to do. I've most certainly been in that position hundreds of times, and I'm sure that I'll be in that position again. It's definitely not the best way to get work done, but sometimes the situation just deems it necessary. It's how I got through almost all of my first degree. It's helped me move through the corporate world over the years. And I think most importantly, it's allowed me to learn vital skills and move towards my goals in deep and meaningful ways at a fast pace. So today I wanted to share some of those strategies and tips that I've developed and also adopted from other people to hopefully help you move forward in life, nail your uni degree, move up that corporate ladder if that's the thing you're into, and move towards your big goals. And I think most importantly, hopefully it helps you get off that Diet Coke and ramen diet and stop doing so many crazy all-nighters because they're not good for your health. The first and possibly the most obvious tip is you need to create space to do these tasks. So you need to cut out a big chunk of time that's going to be uninterrupted. You can't be popping out to work and popping off to do an errand. It needs to be hours and hours of uninterrupted time that you can dedicate specifically to the task. You also need to create or find the physical space that's going to allow you to focus for hours on end. So if there's a TV humming in the background, or if your housemate keeps popping in to show you Steph Curry highlights, you're not getting that work done. Chuck a sign up on your door, or pop down to your local library, or do they have libraries anymore? I don't know. Pop down to your local cafe, chuck on your big chunkies, headphones, that is, obviously, and block everything else out and really dig in. In the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, he talks about booking out a hotel room or even like taking a flight somewhere just so you can focus on these activities and commit a long period of time that's going to be uninterrupted to these tasks. So finding that physical space is just as important as creating that time space around these tasks. Speaking of time, the second tip that I would give you is start with a timer. As you start your periods of intense focus, set a specific time frame for this focused work to be done in. Use a timer, and once the clock starts counting down, nothing but focused work can be done during that period. And once it finishes, go and have a break. For the first few hours of this highly focused work, your brain is going to wander, but by having this timer set, you know that there's an end in sight. You know that there's a little break coming up, and then you can dive back into it. Whenever you try and focus for long periods at a time, the first few hours is the hardest. So by setting a timer, you know that for those 45 minutes, or it might be an hour that you set, you're only going to be focused on that task, and then you get a little break. Whenever that timer goes off, get up, have 5 minutes off, to reset, realign, whatever you need to do, and then get back into that task. And by doing that for the first few hours, you sort of are training your mind to, when it wanders, bring it back. When it wanders, bring it back. And then after the first few hours, you'll probably find that you don't need the timer, and then you'll just be rolling. But starting with a timer can really help you lock in and focus for those first few hours that are really tricky and your mind's always wandering. When you're going into these long periods of focus, it's important to ramp up the effort. I think this is less of a strategy and more of something to just keep in mind. So while you're starting, as you're using that time to really get your focus going, just know that it's going to take about 3 hours before you're really locked in and before you can really focus for 5, 6, 7 hours straight. And know that your mind's going to wander, and it's okay. That's human. But every time it does, just bring it back in and make the periods that you are trying to focus for slightly longer each time until you kind of get to that 3 hour mark, or it might be a slightly different time for you, but building up those bouts of focus is going to really help you lock into that zone in the long run. The next tip, and I think this is probably the most important one, is to reward yourself. In the last year, I've done 3 all-nighters while working on my master's degree, and the last one was a 35-hour marathon that really pushed me to my limit. And so if these battles have taught me anything, it's that taking a break and rewarding yourself once in a while is really, really important. During those all-nighters, there was times that I wouldn't look away from the screen for 5, 6, maybe 7 hours. And those are the times that my work really started to deteriorate and I really started to waver. And so it was super, super important to listen to my body and take a break every now and then just to recharge my mind. What I found, and it's not surprising, is after those short little breaks where I just got to reset my mind or just go for a walk around the house or have a drink of water or grab a bite to eat, my work and my focus really jumped back up a level to where I was getting good work done and I was finding things were moving along a lot more quickly. I dare say this next tip is going to be the most important for a lot of people tuning into this, and that's to remove environmental cues. The dopamine-rich world that we live in has created a lot of routines and habits that we probably don't even know exist and we probably don't even know we take part in. Things like checking your phone as you move between rooms, or eating while you watch YouTube, or scrolling while you're on the toilet. There's dozens of little habits that we all do every day that are triggered by environmental cues and situational cues. This will take a bit of self-awareness, but by avoiding or removing those environmental cues and those situational cues that trigger these small habits that can really break focus, you're going to go a long way to being able to achieve that deep focus that you really need. If you don't think you're going to be able to remove or avoid these cues at home or wherever you are, head to a completely new spot, a new cafe you've never been to, or a library, which I think still exists, or a conference room. All of these places act as blank habit canvases that cue way less negative and distracting habits. This next one is definitely the most important for me, and it's that creating deadlines is absolutely vital to highly focused work. There's no better way to make yourself get something done than by watching a clock tick down to an impending deadline. Now, waiting to the 11th hour is most certainly not the answer, and it's not sustainable at all, but using artificial deadlines can work in the exact same way. So an example of this is when my friend asks me to send him a new bit of music so he can sing over it. I tell him that by the end of the day, I'll get you a beat or I owe you $50. You can bet your bottom dollar I do not want to give my mate $50 just because I'm a little bit too lazy to work on music on any given day. So you can use those artificial time deadlines, kind of accountability partners, and also a little bit of financial pressure to really help you focus and really get you started in the first place. The next tip's a fun one, and that's to politely tell everyone to go get fucked. If someone keeps messaging you or Snapchatting you, or honestly like anything you, unless it's really, really important, politely tell them to go away. You really shouldn't have to justify why you need that space, but worst case, just explain the situation to that person, and if they're a good person, if they're a good friend, they'll understand. And if not, it's probably a good chance for you to make new friends, because those sort of people shouldn't be in your life anyway. This tip kind of goes along with the idea of environmental cues, but it's super important to desensitize yourself to nudge. Nudge is one of the most powerful forces in the world today, and it impacts your behavior a lot more than you probably realize. Nudge is any sort of positive or negative reinforcement that you get for completing a task. And the most common form of nudge that we deal with day to day is your phone buzzing, or that little red icon above any app like Instagram or Snapchat. Tons of my friends literally can't resist the buzz of their phone or that little red icon over an app. They have to get rid of them or they go crazy. In an attempt to focus deeply over the years, I've tried to practice leaving emails unopened and notifications unresolved and stories unread. And I think this is something that we should all try and practice a little bit more so we can focus deeply and not be slaves to our phones and devices. If you're anything like my friends who just can't leave that buzzing phone or that red notification unresolved, then leave your phone in another room, put it on airplane mode, and let yourself focus until the task is done. So that's it. Those are my 8 tips for focusing deeply. I hope some of those tips help you achieve your goals and do really well at uni or whatever you're working on. If you want to leave a comment, have a little yarn, then do so below. Do the like and subscribe thing if you want to, or not, whatever. And until next time, I'll catch you. Until next time, I'll catch you. Thanks. Man.